Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly AgWeather forecast brought to you by the Farm Credit Services. We're going to start off with looking at the last 7 days. We've talked a lot about how this pattern was going to be drier through the end of October and now the beginning of November, and we had some questions as to whether or not we could bring in better flow at some point in November to start to eradicate some of the rapid drought that's been developing. So if we just look back over the last 7 days, most of our heaviest rainfall, again, this was a while ago, but came from this system that rolled right here through parts of the Mid-South. Now, since then, it's been the Pacific Northwest that's been targeted with the heaviest rains, and it's going to continue to be the Pacific Northwest getting targeted until we get this shift in the jet stream pattern that I'm excited to kind of tell you about today. So before we get into that, I want to give you some stats on where we stand. We call a water year from October to October, all right? So since the beginning of this new water year, which we started on October the 1st, most of Ag South territory has been well below average on precipitation. Now, we did have one event back in October that delivered some heavy rain into parts of, this part of Georgia, getting into pockets of South Carolina. But overall, look, we've seen on average between about 10 and 50% of normal precipitation. And we look over the broader area of the Southeast, it's been much lower than that. Now, I want to show you this another way by looking at some of the stats, and that's what we've got here. This would be, again, since October 1st, looking through the 5th of November. And we do see that most of our climate reporting districts are on the drier side of average, with some of them up here in parts of North Carolina here in the top 5 to 6 driest on record. Now, get over to Tennessee, northern Alabama, getting into northern Mississippi, and then down into Louisiana and southern Mississippi. And this has been some of where our driest air has been. But if we look at the newest drought monitor, that is the area that's in the deepest drought. And I say but because the changes that are coming into this area by the time we get into next week are going to be substantial for the moisture into this region. So how much did our drought monitor really change in the last week? Well, the only place that got worse was primarily in through here. We did see much heavier rains come through Texas and Oklahoma, which relieved some of the drought pressure in that area. In fact, parts of central Texas saw a 3-class improvement in the drought monitor just in this newest update. So we have questions. This drought, is it going to last, or is the narrative I've been giving you now for weeks that this late fall through winter time period is going to be bringing in the precip? Well, we just have to take another stab at it and have a look. Before I go much farther, though, with all of that rainfall that did come in parts of the upper Mississippi Basin, I'm thinking about here, or the Missouri Basin, or even parts of the Ohio Basin, the Mississippi River at Memphis is now only about 5 feet below low stage. Now, it was as low about 2 weeks ago as 12 feet below low stage, which means it's recovering. We're going to have to watch carefully to see how this recovers as we go forward here. All right. When I think about the Southeast in November, I thought it'd be fun to look up some stats here. And so I just went back to 1895 and plotted November precipitation for the whole of the Southeast. It's good to know that overall the trend is basically flat. And we have to then assess what it takes to get these very wet time periods and very dry time periods. And the good news is that the type of setup I expect to see, here setting up about 7 days from now, 7 days to 14 days from now, is the type that could be delivering a lot of rainfall for the second half of this month. And it's going to begin with the discussion on the jet stream. I kind of zoomed in here on the United States just to show you what it's going to look like as we watch the day on Monday. The jet is entering the western United States at about 175 miles an hour. Now remember, that's 6 miles above our heads, but it's screaming in here. What is going to change in this is that we're going to start to watch a piece of the jet stream coming from Hawaii that's going to go across Mexico and leave the nose of the jet into parts of Texas, which pushes into the southeast. So while the Pacific jet backs off, the northern branch of it, the southern branch starts to pick up. Now take a look at this. I love to look at these diagrams. They tell me so much about what the upstream part of the flow is. And if we look at it, it's a phase diagram with a poleward shift or an equatorward shift, an extension or retraction of the jet stream. So basically, it's telling me if the jet is north and extended, or maybe it's south and retracted, or maybe somewhere in the middle. Now, what we've got right now is that the jet stream is currently shifted south, but it's trying to retract, which is going to pull back toward Japan in the North Pacific. And while it does that, though, there's going to be some support from some stuff happening in the tropics to get the subtropical branch going. Now, this graphic doesn't account for the subtropical branch of the Pacific. It's mainly a North Pacific jet phase diagram. So I just want you to see here that we have to look at the exchange between these two parts of the jet stream to see where things are going to go. So here's kind of the bigger story as we start off the day on Monday and play forward. The jet stream in its net position has put a little bit of a ridge over the southeast. This is the wrong side of the jet stream to be getting lift in the atmosphere, and as a result, the flow goes right to our north, which means we're going to go through much of this week drier. We see that as we get out there toward Friday and Saturday, even though the jet really begins to pick up pace here, being on the entrance side of it, which is where I put the X, versus on the exit side of it where I'll put maybe a triangle, that's the difference between where the air is going to have its best chance at rising. You want to be on the exit side of a jet stream, a jet streak, to get the best rising motion. Now, I'll be honest, if I saw a pattern like this and it was late December or January, February, even March, man, we'd be talking about some monster storm systems rolling up the East Coast. But here in early November, not the case. Now, I mentioned this jet stream pattern in the Pacific retracting. And what we're going to see here is that as we go to next Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, the jet pulled back. See that? It's now just coming off of Japan, and it's kind of stopping right in through here. Look what showed up, though. Now, as that begins to show up, watch the nose of it right here. Going out there to Tuesday the 14th into the 15th, 16th, and 17th. The jet exit is right here. And that's what's going to help promote better chances of bringing in some moisture. So overall, this is what we get. There's your next 7 days. We are drier on average compared to climatological normal. But this is a 7-day sliding window of average precipitation anomalies. And that's the 7th through the 14th. And this out here is when we get out farther in the pattern. Why don't we just leave it out there about the 21st? So if we look at that time frame, the 14th through the 21st, we see the models going over wet. And that would be the influence of the subtropical jet. Now, this doesn't give us just days and days and days of rain, but it's breaking the pattern away from what we have been seeing for a while now and starting to return the right kind of flow. Because either we had deep troughs in early October, again, remember, the flow coming in like this, that's the entrance side. It's dry. Or what we ended up getting was a ridge that came over the top, and that ridge just left us under high pressure and killed us for moisture. We now have flow coming in like this, and we get the benefit of pulling some tropical moisture out of this, and we get the benefit of the upper level lift in the atmosphere to produce more precipitation. Now, again, this is more than a week away from us starting. So I want to be very clear that there is a lot that could change with this. But I watched the models consistently push toward this pattern. All the weekend trends suggested this would be the case. So why don't we get in there and see when it finally arrives? Our first animation is just going to be our high-res NAM model, and it's just to point out that starting off early in the morning on Monday, the system rolls right through the Great Lakes into New England. There's some snow on the northern side, and outside of that, all the actions in the Pacific Northwest or here at the U.S.-Canada border through, Tuesday. Nothing really for us. When does it start to arrive? Well, I'm going to start this off Tuesday. We'll do our model comparison, the European on the right, the GFS on the left. Performance statistic-wise, the European is doing better than the GFS. But let's just play quickly. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You'll notice that by Thursday, we get the first push of moisture. It's in both models, coming out from Texas into the Mid-South. So into early Friday morning, we're going to watch that start to work its way into the southeast, such that by Friday night into Saturday morning, we got our first chance at getting some rainfall. We'll take a look at how much in just a second. So as I said, most of this week, nothing until we get to the end of the week, starting to bring up our rainfall chances. So we go into Saturday and Sunday, and what you notice is we start to get some low pressure development just off the coast. So there's going to be wetter conditions this weekend, but it's going to be out there Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of the following week, where we watch the pattern kind of get reset back up as the nose of that jet comes in to give us a wetter week 2. Okay, so we really only have in the next 10 days one decent chance. Let me show it to you. Nothing through Thursday. Ready? This is Thursday night, Friday morning, Friday afternoon and evening, and there it is. After that, if I just keep playing this out there to day 10, we're not adding any more to this. So again, through Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, not a whole lot, but Thursday evening, really getting into Friday, that's the push. The big push is on Friday into Saturday. So Friday, Saturday, rainfall coming through. Now, the models are going to bounce around a lot on the total amount, but we're just kind of getting an idea of what to expect here overall as we look over these next 7 to 10 days. But what we have to watch, okay, is on Tuesday the 14th, this ridge, which is going to be keeping us dry at the start of that time period, is out. And by the 16th, 17th, and 18th, the models continue to drop a trough in through here on the nose of the jet, and that's what's going to increase our chances as we go into week 2. Now, looking at some of the probability maps, most of the next 10 days is drier. Our chances at getting less than a half inch of rainfall are high over the next 10 days. They're 50 to 80%. But watch as I take you from day 10 to day 15. See it all just disappear? That's the better chances of moisture coming in as we get past the 15th and out there toward the 16th, 17th, and 18th. And the models are really showing this. The week 2 forecast, it's not just the European model, it's the CPC. The only model that's not bought into this is the GFS. And I kind of question the GFS performance right now, just overall. So I'm favoring these 2 forecasts. Okay, now before I give you the longer range, though, can I give you an update on what's happening with our temperatures? Thankfully, all that brutally cold air that was in place for a while is out, and we've seen much more mild air come in. Our high temperatures, take a look at this. Monday, a lot of 70s here. Tuesday, even warmer, 70 cracking 80. Then we get into Wednesday. That's our warmest day, looking at 70s, widespread, but a lot of folks topping over 80. Same on Thursday. By the time we get into the weekend, Friday, remember Saturday, that's our best chance at rain, really Friday into Saturday. Could be a little bit in Georgia on Thursday, but mostly a Friday, Saturday event, so the temperatures back off then. But overall, if we just look at the way the temperature pattern goes, most of your next 5 days are mild. And then we have the cool down that's coming. Here it is, day 5 through 10. But just look at this. We play this out. There's not a whole lot of reason to say that really cold air is going to invade the southeast or really anywhere across North America through the next 15 days or so. So we've seen the precipitation. We know we got a dry week ahead of us overall. We're going to watch Friday, Saturday for our first chance at rain, but it's still not putting us above average on precip. And then we notice that it's going to take until we get past about day 10 to get this pattern invigorated. The last summary here is that we're mild overall during this time period. When it cools off, it's just barely below average. So where do we go from here? Well, quickly to South America before I give you the longer range. The weekend trend for much of Brazil was substantially drier. I'd say about 70% of their growing area, maybe 75% of it, is now under very dry conditions with the heat pouring back on. There's still flooding in southern Brazil, and there's better rains in northern Argentina, but not down here in like Buenos Aires, which is here, or over toward Cordoba. Most of the heaviest rains focused in southern Brazil, Paraguay, and northern sections of Uruguay. Now, this dry weather has had a major impact on planting progress, and some of the newest data would show that after being just on this breakneck speed here, we saw a major drop-off. We're currently at 83% planted, average is 93%, so we're about 10% behind, and we have questions as to how much needs to get replanted. This is going to be an ongoing story in South America, and one that we need to just continue to consider and talk quite a bit about in these videos. But I want to bring you back to your longer range forecast because on Friday, the CPC updated the outlook for the second half of November. And again, they've gone wetter for a lot of Ag South territory. And I say, okay, does this make sense? Because overall, this whole thing looks like El Nino to the T to me. I mean, mild north, near normal south, wet south, a little drier north. I don't buy this, but maybe overall, we've got the wetter south and the temperature pattern closer to average, or closer to right, I should say. You see, I think right now much of this is being driven by the factor El Nino is building. The Indian Ocean dipole is making a little comeback again, so it's not crashing as hard as it had been. And you may say, well, what's the result? Why do you talk about this so much? I talk about it because of this. We see that over the next 15 days, a lot of subsidence in the atmosphere right here. And if the air is sinking in this area, it's got to be rising over Africa or rising initially here and eventually there. And why this is so important is because wherever that air begins to rise, it invigorates the jet stream activity, specifically the subtropical jet stream activity. And if that MJO keeps sweeping back over here into phase 1 and 8, it's going to set off a North American trough ridge pattern that's active. Now, what I mean by that is there's no big blocking pattern here setting up across the Arctic or across the northerly latitudes. So jet stream dips into the west and rolls up an east coast ridge, but it's going to bring moisture in. It's going to keep things going. And that's November, and I think this is December. In December, we could really watch a strong subtropical jet run under the southern side of this. And you just say, Eric, okay, I need to know what the end result is. The end result is this. This is the newest update from mid-November to mid-December, and it is wetter. It's wettest compared to average over the driest spots in Louisiana and Mississippi. Models continue to trend this way. So unfortunately, we need to continue to deal with another week of dry weather, maybe 10 days of it overall, with only one shot at rain coming in this weekend. But then after that, it seems the pattern gets on its horse and gets going, and we start to deliver better subtropical flow. And it's been consistent about this for a while. Now, as we enter the month of December, we got to start talking about winter. And I think a lot of winter discussion is going to come into how much will El Nino influence the pattern. This El Nino has been overpredicted for months. Current predictions are now taking it to reach a peak of right around 2 degrees C above average. Right now, it's about 1.5 degrees. So this is nowhere near the Super Nino that was predicted to happen this winter, that was talked a lot about during the summer. It's much, much more, kind of tempered here overall in its strength, and we got to ask where it's going. So here we go. If we look right now at the latest ocean temperature forecast, from November to December and January, that's when El Nino should peak. As it does so, there's a bit cooler water to the north, and it extends over here. Now, what's the importance of that? This could be very supportive of helping the Pacific jet roll right into that area. As we go from January into February, March, and April, we see the El Nino past its peak in through the rest of February, March, and April. And then by the time we get out to May, we could be talking about a year next year where El Nino's already crashed back to neutral, and maybe is by midsummer next year, we're talking about La Nina. Now, one of the things that got a lot of us thinking over the weekend was that this is the new European model. This just came out on Sunday. But we also saw this from the Canadians. And their forecast, look at this. This is June, July, and August, is to bring back in a La Nina while keeping the Atlantic boiling. And I'm just going to say this, and you need to listen to me carefully, okay? If this happens, it looks like this, wow, does that set up the Atlantic for big-time hurricane risk? It's a big if, though. We've got to see El Nino absolutely crash and go away entirely, leaving the Atlantic as warm as it is. And this is the Canadian model. You notice I don't show it to you very often because it's not a model I often trust. So can I go back to the one that I want to show you, which is the ECMWF seasonal forecast, and that's through May. Now, let's bring it into the United States, and let's flip this over to a discussion on seasonal precipitation anomalies and bring it back. So there's November, December, January. Models have gone over wetter. This is December, January, February, wetter. This is January, February, March, wetter. Going again, February, March, April, May. Overall, what we see is that if El Nino is what it's cracked up to be, even though it's not nearly as strong as originally thought, there's little chance of us having widespread drought development this winter. So what we had in October and the beginning of November is a bit anomalous for what we should expect to see for the remainder of the winter of this cold season. Now, speaking of cold, this will be the last thing we talk about today. Let me take you back. Let's go to just December, January, February. The models are doing a very El Nino thing by giving us near normal to cooler normal temperatures south. I'm going to say it again. I think this is a year where we get a lot of systems come out of the Arklatex region, which is here, or maybe the Panhandles, or up around Paducah, or that Miller A-type storm system, and they all roll through like this. And where do they kind of find their life? Jet stream comes over the top, in from the bottom. They come together and roll through that way in the country. Now, all of the subseasonal things will control this, okay? This is primarily an El Nino forecast. But as we get into the season, it's always the sub-seasonal things that really dictate what happens week to week. And that's why we do this video every week. So I'll keep you posted. You now know the next chance I'm thinking about for precip this weekend, and then really getting going after we get out about 10 days from now. But until then, just watch what the pattern's going to do, and I'll keep you updated. I appreciate it. Thank you.